Commander Vector stepped off the transport ship and into Earth's orbital station. His massive armored form gleamed under the artificial lights. Behind him, 12 elite warriors followed in perfect formation. Each one wore badges of honor across their chest plates, symbols of survival from the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy. They were the Deathworld Legion, the best of the best. Vector had survived acid rain that could melt steel in seconds. He had walked through gravity fields that crushed bones like twigs. He had fought predators with teeth sharper than diamond blades. 500 Deathworlds. 500 planets that wanted him dead. And he had conquered them all. Now he was here. At Earth. A small human woman waited for them at the docking bay. She wore a crisp blue uniform and her dark hair was pulled back neatly. She smiled warmly as the giant aliens approached. "Welcome to Earth," she said in a friendly voice. "I am Ambassador Margaret Davies. We are very happy to have you here." Vector looked down at her. She barely reached his chest plate. So small. So fragile looking. How did creatures this tiny survive on any planet? "Ambassador Davies," Vector replied, his voice deep and rumbling through his translator. "Thank you for the welcome. We are honored to be chosen for this evaluation." Margaret gestured for them to follow her through the station. As they walked, Vector accessed the data file about Earth on his neural implant. The information scrolled across his vision. Planet, Earth. Gravity, standard. Atmosphere, oxygen-nitrogen mix, breathable. Temperature range, moderate. Threat level, low to moderate. Vector almost laughed. After 500 death worlds, they were sending his elite squad to what looked like a paradise planet. The Empire must want them to rest. This would be easy. Beside him, Sorelin clicked his mandibles nervously. Sorelin was the squad scout, an insectoid warrior with 6 legs and compound eyes that could see in multiple spectrums. He had survived a planet where the fog itself was carnivorous. "Commander," Sorelin chittered quietly, "the atmospheric readings are unusual." "How so?" Vector asked. "There is significant water vapor in the air. And the scans show that water falls from the sky here. Regularly." Vector paused for a moment. "Precipitation? Like the crystal storms on Razor Peak?" "No, sir. Just water. Plain liquid water. It falls from clouds." Dr. Tamrick, their xenobiologist, checked his own scanner. His 3 eyes blinked in sequence as he read the data. "Fascinating. It appears to be a natural cycle. Water evaporates from the surface, forms clouds in the atmosphere, then falls back down as rain." "Is the water dangerous?" Vector asked. "Acidic? Toxic?" "No, Commander. It appears to be neutral. Just plain water." Vector relaxed. So Earth had rain. Harmless water falling from the sky. Nothing to worry about. They reached the observation deck. Through the massive windows, Earth slowly rotated below them. It was beautiful. Blue oceans sparkled in the sunlight. White clouds swirled in delicate patterns. Green and brown landmasses looked peaceful and inviting. Vector had seen many planets. Most were brown or gray or red, the colors of death and violence. Earth looked like a jewel. "We will be landing in a region called the Pacific Northwest," Margaret explained. "It is spring there now. A very beautiful time of year." The shuttle ride down was smooth. Vector watched through the viewport as they descended through wispy white clouds. Below, he could see green forests covering rolling hills. Mountains with white caps rose in the distance. A city sparkled near a large body of water. Everything looked so gentle. So calm. The shuttle touched down at a military base. The ramp lowered with a hiss. Vector took his first step onto Earth's surface. The air was perfect. Clean and fresh. Rich with oxygen. The temperature was comfortable. His sensors read 18 degrees Celsius. A light breeze carried the scent of plants and soil. A human man in green military clothing waited at the bottom of the ramp. He raised his hand to his forehead in a salute. "Commander Vector," the man said with a friendly smile. "I am Captain Thomas Miller. I will be your guide while you are here. Welcome to Joint Base Lewis." Vector returned the salute in the human style. "Captain Miller, your world seems very pleasant." Thomas grinned. "We like it here. Though you picked an interesting time to visit. Spring in the Northwest means rain season." "We have been informed about Earth's precipitation," Vector said confidently. "It presents no concern to us." Thomas glanced up at the sky. Dark clouds were gathering overhead. "If you say so, Commander. We should probably get you inside before it starts." "Before what starts?" Thomas pointed upward. "The rain." At that exact moment, Vector felt something touch his armor. A small droplet of water. Then another. And another. Suddenly, water was falling from the sky everywhere. Not just a few drops. Thousands of them. Millions of them. They appeared out of nowhere, falling constantly, hitting everything, covering everything. His armor sensors went crazy. Impact detected. Impact detected. Impact detected. The alerts scrolled endlessly across his vision. The water was not dangerous. His sensors confirmed it was just plain water. But it was everywhere. Constant. Unending. Inescapable. Sorlin made a strange sound. Vector turned and saw his scout frozen in place. Sorlin's 6 legs were locked rigid. His compound eyes stared up at the sky in what could only be described as absolute terror. On Sorlin's homeworld, water existed only deep underground in protected caverns. To see it falling from open sky, falling everywhere, unlimited and never stopping, it was beyond his comprehension. Sorlin? Vector touched his shoulder. Report your status. The scout did not respond. He just stood there, trembling as water began to seep through his armor joints. Thomas frowned. The friendly smile disappeared from his face. Commander, is your man okay? Vector looked around at his squad. These were warriors who had faced living volcanoes, who had survived sentient acid clouds, who had battled through radiation storms that could cook flesh in seconds. All of them stood with wide eyes, staring at the simple rain falling from Earth's sky. Dr. Tamrick's voice came through the communication channel. It was barely a whisper. Commander, the scans show this is not localized. This weather pattern covers thousands of square kilometers. And the database says, this is considered light rain. Light? Vector repeated. Margaret appeared beside Thomas. She held a colorful dome-shaped object over her head. Vector's database identified it as an umbrella, a tool specifically designed to block rain. The fact that humans had invented special equipment just to deal with this phenomenon suddenly felt ominous. Commander, Margaret said gently, perhaps we should go inside? We have prepared a full briefing about Earth's climate systems. Vector wanted to refuse. He wanted to stand tall and show strength. But Sorlin still had not moved. 2 other squad members were showing stress readings that had not appeared since their very first Deathworld. The rain fell harder. Just slightly harder. But the droplets hit with more force. Made more noise. Yes, Vector heard himself say. Inside would be acceptable. As they hurried toward the building, Vector noticed human soldiers continuing their normal activities in the rain. Some were jogging past. Others were talking and laughing together. The water soaked through their clothing, but they did not seem to care at all. One young woman with blonde hair jogged by and waved cheerfully at the alien visitors. Her hair was plastered flat against her head. Her uniform was completely soaked. And she was smiling. She looked happy. Vector had survived 500 Deathworlds. He had faced every horror the galaxy could throw at him. He had never known fear. But standing in Earth's gentle rain, watching humans smile and laugh while his elite warriors trembled, Vector felt something completely new. Uncertainty. The briefing room was warm and dry. Vector sat at a large table with his squad gathered around him. Water dripped from their armor onto the floor. Small puddles formed beneath each warrior. Sorlin sat in the corner, wrapped in a thermal blanket. He had not spoken since they came inside. His compound eyes stared blankly at the wall. The medic had given him something to calm his nerves. Margaret stood at the front of the room beside a large display screen. She smiled apologetically at the assembled warriors. I want to apologize, she began. We did not realize the rain would be so distressing for you. We should have prepared you better. Vector shifted in his seat. He felt embarrassed. His squad looked weak. They looked afraid of simple water. Please continue with your briefing, he said stiffly. Margaret nodded and activated the screen. An image of Earth appeared, slowly rotating. It was mostly blue. This is Earth, she said. As you can see, approximately 71% of our planet's surface is covered with water. Dr. Tamrick made a choking sound. 71%? Yes. We have 5 major oceans and countless lakes and rivers. The image zoomed in to show massive bodies of water. Oceans that stretched beyond the horizon. Vector had seen water before, but never in such quantities. Never covering so much of a planet's surface. The water on our planet moves in a continuous cycle, Margaret continued. Heat from our sun causes water to evaporate. It rises into the atmosphere and forms clouds. When the clouds become heavy enough, the water falls back to the surface as precipitation. The screen showed animated diagrams of this process. Water rising. Clouds forming. Rain falling. Over and over in an endless loop. How often does this happen? Vector asked. Thomas, who stood beside Margaret, answered. It depends on the region. Here in the Pacific Northwest, we get rain about 150 days per year. 150 days? Vector repeated. Yes. Other places get more. Some get less. But rain falls somewhere on Earth every single day. Every single day. The words echoed in Vector's mind. This was not a weather event. This was the normal state of the planet. Margaret changed the image. Earth also experiences other forms of precipitation. When the temperature drops, water freezes and falls as snow. The screen showed white flakes drifting from the sky, covering the ground, piling up in deep drifts. Sometimes we get hail, Thomas added. That is when water freezes into solid chunks. They can be as small as pebbles or as large as your fist. Ice falls from the sky? One squad member asked weakly. Yes. And we also have sleet, freezing rain, fog, and dew. Margaret pulled up new images. Then there are our major weather systems. Hurricanes, for example. The screen showed a massive spiral of clouds. It spun slowly, covering an area larger than some small moons. The clouds were thick and angry looking. Hurricanes form over warm ocean water, Margaret explained. They can produce winds exceeding 250 kilometers per hour. Rain falls in sheets. Waves as tall as buildings crash onto shore. How do you stop them? Dr. Tamrick asked desperately. Margaret looked confused. Stop them? We cannot stop them. We evacuate people from the path and wait for the hurricane to pass. You cannot stop them, Vector repeated slowly. Your military cannot destroy these storms? No. They are too large. Too powerful. We can only predict where they will go and move people to safety. Thomas added, we get about 12 hurricanes per year in the Atlantic Ocean alone. Well, every year. Unstoppable storms that humanity simply accepted and worked around. The briefing continued for 2 more hours. Margaret showed them tornadoes, spinning columns of air that destroyed everything they touched. She showed them floods where rivers overflowed and swallowed entire towns. She showed them blizzards that buried cities under meters of frozen water. With each new image, Vector felt his confidence crumbling. On planet Burning Reach, he had faced acid oceans. But those oceans stayed in one place. You could avoid them. You could plan around them. On Fong World, massive predators hunted in packs. But they had patterns. Weaknesses. You could fight them. You could kill them. Earth's weather had no patterns. No weaknesses. You could not fight it. You could not kill it. It simply existed everywhere all the time. A junior squad member suddenly stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. Commander, I request permission to return to the ship. Vector looked at the young warrior. He could see fear in his eyes. Real, genuine fear. Request denied, Vector said firmly. We are the Deathworld Legion. We do not retreat. But even as he said the words, Vector wondered if they were true. Margaret pulled up a new image. It showed a massive waterfall. White water thundered down a cliff face, throwing up clouds of mist. Sorlin, still wrapped in his blanket, made a sound like a scream and a sob combined. The medic rushed to his side. That is Niagara Falls, Margaret said softly. One of our most famous waterfalls. Tourists come from all over the world to see it. How much water? Dr. Tamrick asked in a hollow voice. About 3,000 cubic meters per second. The number was incomprehensible. 3,000 cubic meters. Every second. Constantly flowing. And this is just one waterfall? Vector asked. Earth has thousands of waterfalls, Thomas confirmed. Vector stood and walked to the window. Outside, the rain continued to fall. Steady. Endless. He watched human soldiers walking between buildings. They wore light jackets with hoods. Some carried umbrellas. But they moved normally. They talked and laughed. A group of children played on a field nearby. They were young, maybe 8 or 9 years old. They wore bright-colored coats and boots. And they were outside. In the rain. By choice. As Vector watched, one child jumped into a puddle. Water splashed everywhere. The child laughed with pure joy. Other children joined in, jumping and splashing, treating the rain like it was a game. Your children, Vector said slowly. They play in the rain. Margaret came to stand beside him. Yes, most human children love rain. They find it fun. Fun, Vector repeated. He had faced monsters that could tear through starship hulls. He had survived temperatures that would vaporize most metals. He had battled his way through 500 death worlds. But these small human children, these fragile young beings, played happily in conditions that terrified his elite warriors. Dr. Tamrick joined them at the window. His 3 eyes watched the children with something like awe. "Commander," he whispered, "I have studied hundreds of species. I have analyzed survival mechanisms across thousands of environments. But I have never seen anything like this." "Like what?" Vector asked. "Humans do not resist their environment. They do not fight against it. They simply accept it. They live in it. They raise their children in it. They find joy in it." Vector watched as one child tilted her face up to the sky, letting raindrops fall onto her cheeks. She was smiling. "We train to survive hostile environments," Dr. Tamrick continued. "We learn to fight, to endure, to conquer. But humans did not train. They were born here. This chaos is normal to them." Thomas overheard them. "Is it really that different from your worlds?" Vector turned to face the human captain. "On the Deathworlds we trained on, there were threats. Creatures. Hazards. Things we could identify and defeat. But here." He gestured out the window at the falling rain. "Here the entire planet is the threat. And you cannot fight it. You cannot defeat it. You can only live with it." Thomas nodded slowly. "I guess that is true. We never really thought about it that way." Margaret checked her datapad. "Commander, we have more briefings scheduled for tomorrow. Weather patterns, seasonal changes, ocean currents." "No," Vector interrupted. He took a deep breath. "No more briefings today. My squad needs time to process this information." Margaret looked concerned. "Of course. Whatever you need." As the humans left the room, Vector looked at his warriors. The elite Deathworld Legion. The best soldiers in the Crethean Empire. They sat in silence, staring at nothing, processing the impossible reality of Earth. Outside, the rain continued to fall. And somewhere in the distance, human children continued to laugh and play. 3 days passed. 3 days of briefings that slowly broke down everything Vector thought he understood about survival. On the first day, Margaret showed them videos of hurricanes. Real footage from actual storms. The screen displayed a massive wall of gray clouds stretching across the entire horizon. Wind bent palm trees until they nearly touched the ground. Rain fell so thick you could not see through it. Waves taller than buildings smashed into coastal cities. "This is Hurricane Patricia," Margaret explained. "One of the strongest storms ever recorded. Wind speeds reached 345 kilometers per hour. Vector watched a house being ripped apart. The roof flew away like a leaf in the wind. Walls collapsed. Cars tumbled down streets like children's toys." "How many died?" he asked quietly. "In this storm? Surprisingly few. We evacuated people beforehand. But other hurricanes have killed thousands." Thomas added, "The thing about hurricanes is we can see them coming. We track them with satellites. We know days in advance where they will hit. But we still cannot stop them." One of Vector's squad members, a warrior named Drektis who had survived the lava fields of Char, spoke up. "On Char we could predict the lava flows. We mapped them. Avoided them. But if we could not avoid them, we could fight through them with proper equipment." "You cannot fight through a hurricane," Thomas said simply. "Then what do? We leave. We go somewhere else and wait for it to pass. Then we come back and rebuild." Rebuild. Humans built their cities, knowing that weather would destroy them, and then they simply built them again. On the second day they learned about tornadoes. Margaret showed footage of a massive black funnel dropping from the sky. It touched the ground and everything in its path exploded into fragments. "Tornadoes are more unpredictable than hurricanes," she explained. "They form quickly. Sometimes with only minutes of warning. They can appear almost anywhere." The video showed a tornado tearing through a neighborhood. One house remained completely untouched. The house next to it was reduced to splinters and scattered across a field. "There is no pattern?" Dr. Tamrick asked. "No way to predict exactly where they will strike?" "We can predict general conditions that create tornadoes," Margaret said. "But exactly where one will touch down? Or which path it will take? No, we cannot know that." Vector felt something cold settle in his chest. On every death world he had conquered there were rules. Patterns. The acid rain on Burning Reach fell during specific atmospheric conditions. The predators on Fong World hunted during their mating season. Everything had logic. But Earth's weather followed its own rules. Rules that humans still did not fully understand despite living here for thousands of generations. On the third day Margaret showed them winter weather. Snow piling up 3 meters deep. Ice coating everything in a smooth, slippery shell. Avalanches roaring down mountains, swallowing everything in their path. In some regions winter lasts 6 months, Thomas explained. The temperature stays below freezing. Water becomes solid. Plants stop growing. Some animals hibernate, they sleep through the entire season. And humans? Vector asked. We wear warmer clothes. We heat our buildings. We clear snow from roads. We adapt. There was that word again. Adapt. Humans did not conquer Earth's weather. They adapted to it. That evening Vector could not sleep. He left his quarters and walked through the empty hallways of the base. His footsteps echoed in the silence. He found himself in the observation lounge. Rain streaked down the large windows. It had been raining on and off for 3 days straight. Sometimes heavy. Sometimes light. But it never truly stopped. Cannot sleep either? Vector turned. Margaret sat in a chair near the window holding a cup of something hot. Steam rose from it. No, Vector admitted. My mind cannot rest. Margaret gestured to the chair beside her. Vector sat down carefully. The human furniture was not built for his size, but it held his weight. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the rain. May I ask you something, Ambassador? Vector said. Of course. Your species has no natural resistance to water. You can drown in it. You cannot breathe it. Extended exposure to cold water will kill you through hypothermia. Yet you evolved on a planet that is 71% water. A planet where water falls from the sky constantly. How? Margaret took a sip from her cup. We adapted, as I said before. But not physically. We adapted mentally. I do not understand. Human children are taught from birth that rain is normal. Natural. Not dangerous by itself. Yes, too much water can be dangerous. Floods can kill. But rain itself? Rain is just part of life. Like breathing. Like eating. It simply is. Vector looked out at the rain. My species evolved on a dry world. Water exists in underground reservoirs. When it rains on my homeworld, it is a rare event. A celebration. But the rain is brief. Controlled. Predictable. Earth is not predictable, Margaret agreed. That is what breaks us, Vector said quietly. We train to face threats. We study them. We learn their patterns. We develop strategies to defeat them. But Earth's weather cannot be defeated. It has no pattern we can fully predict. And it never stops. Margaret nodded. I think I am beginning to understand. You see weather as an enemy to fight. But we see it as a dance partner, maybe? Something we move with instead of against. A dance partner that kills thousands of you every year. Yes, Margaret admitted. But also one that brings rain to water our crops. Snow that provides fresh water when it melts. Storms that cool the air and clean the atmosphere. Earth's weather is dangerous, but it is also necessary. We cannot exist without it. Vector watched the rain. Humans had learned to live with constant uncertainty. To accept that their environment could kill them at any moment, and to find peace with that knowledge. On planet TR-771, Vector had faced silicon-based predators that could smell fear through armor plating. He had killed 3 of them in single combat. He knew how to fight monsters. But this? How did you make peace with an entire planet that treated destruction as a normal daily function? My squad is breaking, Vector said softly. Sorlin still barely speaks. Dr. Tamrick has stress readings I have never seen before. Even I feel wrong. Afraid of something I cannot fight. What will you do? Margaret asked. I do not know yet. Outside the window, a human couple walked past. They shared a large umbrella pressed close together. The man said something and the woman laughed. They looked happy. Completely at peace in the rain. Vector had conquered 500 Deathworlds. He had medals and scars to prove his strength. But watching those humans walk casually through the rain, he felt something he had never experienced before. He felt small. Your species is terrifying, he said to Margaret. She looked surprised. Us? Terrifying? Yes. You live on a death world and you do not even realize it. You dance with chaos and call it normal. Your children play in conditions that would break trained soldiers. And you do it all with a smile. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, maybe that is what it means to be human. To face the impossible every day and keep going anyway. Vector stood. He needed to return to his quarters. He needed to think. But as he walked away, he heard Margaret say one more thing. The rain is not your enemy, Commander. Your fear of uncertainty is. Vector stopped. He did not turn around. He simply stood there, letting her words sink in. Then he continued walking, his heavy footsteps echoing through the empty hallways. Outside, the rain continued to fall. Patient. Endless. Inevitable. Just as it had for billions of years. just as it would for billions more. On the fourth day, Thomas made a suggestion that changed everything. "How about a field exercise?" he said during breakfast. "Just a simple hike through the forest. 5 kilometers. Beautiful scenery. Fresh air." Vector looked at his squad. They had been inside the base for days watching videos and reading reports. Maybe getting outside would help. Maybe seeing Earth's nature directly would be better than learning about it through screens. "What are the weather conditions?" Vector asked. Thomas checked his device. "Light rain forecasted. Nothing serious. We go hiking in weather like this all the time." Light rain. The same conditions that had frozen Sorlin on the landing pad. But Vector could not show weakness. They were the Deathworld Legion. They could not be defeated by a simple walk in the forest. "We accept," Vector said. Half his squad wanted to refuse. Vector could see it in their eyes. But no one spoke up. They were warriors. They had their pride. They departed at dawn in 2 transport vehicles. The human team consisted of Thomas, Margaret, and 3 soldiers. They wore simple hiking clothes and light jackets. No armor. No heavy equipment. Vector's squad wore full combat gear. Every piece of protective equipment they owned. The forest was called Olympic National Forest. As they drove through it, Vector had to admit it was beautiful. Massive trees rose on both sides of the road, so tall they seemed to touch the clouds. Ferns covered the ground in thick green carpets. Moss grew on everything, soft and vibrant. "Those trees are called Sitka spruce," Margaret explained. "Some of them are over 300 years old." 300 years. These trees had stood here, enduring Earth's weather, for longer than Vector's entire military career. They parked the vehicles and began walking on a trail. The ground was soft beneath their feet. Damp. Water dripped from leaves overhead. But no rain fell yet. "See," Thomas said with a smile. "Not so bad." They walked for 20 minutes. Vector began to relax. The forest was peaceful. Birds sang in the trees. A small stream bubbled beside the trail. This was actually pleasant. Then the rain started. Just a few drops at first. Gentle. Quiet. The humans continued talking and laughing as if nothing had changed. But within 10 minutes, the rain grew heavier. Still not dangerous. Still just water. But constant. Drumming on leaves. Pattering on the ground. Creating a sound like static that surrounded them from every direction. Vector felt his heart rate increase. His armor registered it. Elevated stress hormones. Increased adrenaline. His body was preparing for combat. But there was nothing to fight. The rain fell harder. Moderate rain, Thomas called it. To Vector, it felt like being under attack. Every raindrop that hit his armor was a tiny impact. Thousands of them. Millions. Never stopping. The sound triggered something deep in his brain. Something primal. On his homeworld, constant tapping sounds meant predators. Claws on rock. Teeth clicking. Danger approaching. But here there were no predators. Just rain. Sorlin stopped walking. His 6 legs locked in place. His mandibles began clicking rapidly, the same clicking sound as the rain on leaves. "Commander," Sorlin whispered. I cannot do this." "We are almost to the halfway point," Vector said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We can do this." But Sorlin did not move. He stood frozen, staring up at the gray sky with pure terror in his compound eyes. 2 more squad members stopped. They turned and walked back toward the vehicles without saying a word. Vector did not stop them. Dr. Tamrick's hands were shaking. His 3 eyes darted around, tracking every falling raindrop. "We trained to fight things," he muttered. "Creatures. Enemies. This is the planet itself. How do you fight a planet?" The rain grew heavier still. The visibility dropped. Water ran down Vector's armor in streams. His sensors screamed warnings about water infiltration, even though the armor was perfectly sealed. Then they heard laughter. A human child burst from a side trail ahead of them. She looked about 8 years old. She wore bright yellow rain boots that came up to her knees and a red coat with a hood. She was completely soaked. Her blonde hair stuck to her face in wet strands. And she was laughing. Pure joyful laughter. She jumped into a puddle with both feet. Water splashed everywhere. She spun in a circle, arms out, face tilted up to catch the rain on her tongue. "Emma," a woman's voice called. Not so far ahead. 2 adults appeared on the trail. A man and a woman, both wearing rain jackets and hiking boots. The woman carried a small backpack. They were smiling. The child, Emma, spotted the alien warriors. Her eyes went wide. "Wow. Are you aliens?" "Emma, do not bother them," her mother said, but she was smiling. It is okay, Margaret said quickly. They are visitors from another world. They are learning about Earth. Emma looked up at Vector with pure excitement. Do you like the rain? I love the rain. It makes the best puddles. Vector could not speak. This small human child, this fragile being barely tall enough to reach his waist, stood in the rain with joy on her face. She was not afraid. She was not stressed. She was playing. His squad had survived 500 Deathworlds. They had faced horrors that would make most species flee in terror. They were elite warriors trained for impossible conditions. And this 8-year-old human child had more courage in Earth's rain than all of them combined. Something inside Vector broke. Not his body. His spirit. We are done, he said quietly. Thomas immediately understood. The humor left his face, replaced by genuine concern. Of course. Let me call for extraction. He pulled out a radio and spoke quickly. Within minutes, the transport vehicles arrived at their location on a nearby road. Emma's parents hurried her away, confused but polite. The child waved goodbye, still smiling, still completely unbothered by the rain that was destroying the mental state of trained alien warriors. Back at the base, human psychologists arrived. Medical staff checked vital signs. Sorlin was sedated after suffering what the doctors called a complete psychological breakdown. His clicking had become so rapid and loud that it hurt to hear. Dr. Tamrick sat alone in a corner, rocking back and forth, muttering equations to himself, trying to find logic in something that defied his understanding. 3 other squad members requested medical leave. They could not stop shaking. Vector sat in the medical bay watching his squad fall apart. These were the best soldiers in the Crethean Empire. They had conquered the unconquerable. And Earth's simple rain had defeated them in 4 days. Margaret found him there in the evening. She looked genuinely distressed. Commander, I am so sorry. We did not understand. We should have. No, Vector interrupted. He felt tired. Defeated. The fault is ours. We were arrogant. We thought we had seen everything. Survived everything. What will you do now? Vector watched Sorlin sleeping on a medical bed, his body wrapped in warm blankets, sedatives keeping the nightmares away. I will file a report, Vector said quietly. An honest report. Earth must be reclassified. Reclassified. Yes. Your planet is not moderate. It is not safe. It is a death world. Perhaps the most dangerous one I have ever encountered. Margaret looked shocked. But we are just... You are humans, Vector finished. Born on a death world. Raised in chaos. And you do not even realize how impossible you are. Outside, rain continued to fall on the base. Gentle spring rain. The kind human children played in. The kind that had broken the Death World Legion in less than a week. Vector closed his eyes and listened to the sound. Tap, tap, tap. Endless. Patient. Inevitable. Just like Earth itself. 2 weeks later, Vector stood in a massive conference room at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Holographic projectors displayed his image to leaders across the galaxy. Human diplomats sat in rows of seats. Crethean military command watched from their distant homeworld. Vector wore his full ceremonial armor. All 500 Deathworld badges gleamed on his chest. He had earned every single one through blood and survival. Today he would add something new to Earth's file. I stand before you, Vector began, his voice steady and formal, to deliver my official evaluation of Earth. After careful observation and direct experience, I recommend that Earth be reclassified. Murmurs rippled through the human audience. The Crethean observers leaned forward with interest. Earth should be reclassified from Moderate World to Apex Death World, Class Psychological. The room erupted. Humans looked shocked. Some laughed thinking it was a joke. The Crethean military leaders demanded explanation. Vector raised his hand for silence. Slowly the room quieted. Let me explain my reasoning, he continued. The Deathworld Legion trains soldiers to survive hostile environments. We learn to fight enemies, to endure extreme conditions, to conquer planets that want us dead. He pressed a button. The screen behind him displayed images of his squad's training. Warriors battling through acid rain, surviving crushing gravity, fighting massive predators. We are the best the Crethean Empire has to offer. We have survived 500 Deathworlds. 500 planets specifically designed to kill. The images changed. Now they showed Earth. Blue oceans. Green forests. White clouds. Earth does not look like a death world, Vector admitted. It looks like paradise. And that is what makes it so dangerous. He pulled up new images. hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, blizzards. Earth's threat is not individual. It is systemic. The entire planet operates through constant environmental chaos. Water covers 71% of the surface. That water evaporates, forms clouds, and falls as precipitation. Every single day. Somewhere on Earth, it is raining. A Crethean admiral spoke through the hologram. Commander Vector, you survived the acid oceans of Burning Reach. How can simple water compare? Vector had expected this question. On Burning Reach, Admiral, the acid ocean stays in one place. We mapped it. We avoided it. When we had to cross it, we used proper equipment and followed established protocols. The threat was predictable. He changed the image to show a weather map of Earth covered in swirling storm systems. Earth's weather is not predictable. Hurricanes can change direction with hours of notice. Tornadoes form in minutes. Rain falls without warning. The temperature can drop 30 degrees in a single day. Humans cannot predict exactly when or where these events will occur. They can only estimate. Dr. Tamrick, who sat in the audience, stood up. He had recovered somewhat over the past 2 weeks, but his hand still trembled slightly. If I may add, Commander, he asked. Vector nodded. I have studied the biology of 200 species across 80 worlds, Tamrick said. Humans have no special physical resistance to their environment. They cannot survive in water for extended periods. They have no waterproof skin. Cold water will kill them through hypothermia in minutes. They can drown in less than a meter of water. He paused, looking around at the human audience. Yet they evolved here. On a planet that is mostly water. Where water falls from the sky constantly. Where storms can destroy cities. They have no natural defenses against these threats. So how did they survive? Vector answered. Psychology. Mental adaptation. Humans are born into chaos and they accept it as normal. Their children play in rain. They build cities knowing storms will damage them and they simply rebuild. They face uncertainty every single day and they keep going. He pulled up footage from the forest hike. The video showed Emma, the 8-year-old child, jumping in puddles and laughing. This is a human child, Vector said quietly. 8 years old. Playing in conditions that caused complete psychological breakdown in my trained warriors. She is not afraid. She finds joy in the rain. The room was completely silent now. This is what makes Earth an apex death world, Vector continued. Not the physical danger, though that is real. But the mental fortitude required to live here. To accept that your environment is constantly, unpredictably hostile, and to raise your children in it anyway. To find beauty in chaos. To dance with disaster. He looked directly at the Crethean High Command. We trained to survive hostile worlds. Humans were born on one and learned to thrive. That is a kind of strength we cannot teach. A courage we cannot replicate. They do not conquer their world. They live in harmony with it even as it threatens them. The Crethean Supreme Commander appeared on the main hologram. She was old, scarred, legendary in her own right. Commander Vector, she said slowly. Are you saying that humans are stronger than the Deathworld Legion? Vector chose his words carefully. I am saying they have a strength we do not possess. We can survive a hostile world. They can thrive in one. There is a difference. The commander considered this. Then she nodded. The Crethean Empire accepts your recommendation. Earth will be reclassified as Apex Death World, Class Psychological. It will be registered as the 501st Death World in our database. The first ever classified for mental challenge rather than physical threat. Vector felt relief wash over him. His evaluation was accepted. His squad's breakdown would be understood, not seen as weakness. Commander, the Supreme Commander continued, what are your plans now? Vector had thought about this question for days. I request permission for my squad to remain on Earth. For extended adaptation training. Surprised murmurs filled the room. We have been humbled, Vector explained. We have learned that there are forms of strength we do not understand. I wish to learn from humans. To understand their psychology. Perhaps to become stronger ourselves. The commander smiled, something she rarely did. Permission granted. Learn well, Commander. The conference ended. Diplomats filed out. But Vector remained, looking out the window at New York City. It was raining. Of course it was raining. 6 months passed. Vector stood in a park in Seattle. Light rain fell from gray clouds. He wore no helmet. No full armor. Just a light covering that let him feel the rain on his skin. It was still uncomfortable. The constant sensation of water droplets hitting him. The sound of rain on leaves. His instincts still screamed that this meant danger. But he no longer froze. He could move. He could function. He could accept the rain. Beside him, Sorlin held a bright blue umbrella decorated with pictures of whales. A gift from Margaret. The scout still struggled with rain, but he could now stand outside during light precipitation without sedation. Progress, Sorlin clicked softly. Progress, Vector agreed. Across the park, children played on swings and slides. The rain did not stop them. Their laughter carried through the gray afternoon. One child, a little boy about 6 years old, ran up to Vector. He held out a small umbrella covered in dinosaur pictures. "You look sad," the boy said simply. "Do you want this?" "My mom says rain is just water being friendly." Vector took the umbrella carefully in his large hands. "Thank you, young one. That is a good way to think about it." The boy smiled and ran back to his mother, who waved apologetically. Vector looked at the small dinosaur umbrella. Water being friendly. Such a simple, childish way to describe precipitation. But maybe that was the secret. Maybe humans survived because they taught their children that the chaos was not an enemy. He opened the umbrella. It was far too small for him, barely covering his head. But he held it anyway. Dr. Tamrick approached, also holding an umbrella. "I have been studying human children's literature," he said. "They have hundreds of books about rain. Stories where rain helps gardens grow. Where puddles are portals to adventure. They teach their young to see beauty in water. While we teach our young to fear the unknown," Vector said quietly. "Yes, perhaps that is the difference." They stood together in the rain, two alien warriors slowly learning to accept Earth's most basic feature. Vector pulled out his recording device. He had a message to send to future Deathworld Legion recruits. "This is Commander Vector," he began. "If you are watching this, you are about to begin Deathworld training. You will learn to survive impossible conditions. You will face monsters and disasters. You will become strong." He paused, watching the children play. "But know this, surviving a hostile world makes you a warrior. Being born in one and finding joy anyway makes you something else entirely. Makes you human. And that is a strength that cannot be trained. It must be lived. Learned. Accepted." A raindrop fell on the recording device. Vector did not wipe it away. "Respect Earth. Respect humanity. They have mastered something we are only beginning to understand. They have made peace with chaos itself." He ended the recording. The rain continued to fall. Patient. Endless. Inevitable. And for the first time since arriving on Earth, Vector stood in it without fear. Not because the rain had changed, but because he had.